Welcome to the Folk School on Willow Creek, featuring University Distinguished Professor Tom Ezern, singing and telling stories from the salon on Willow Creek.
Jesse James was a lad that killed many a man. He robbed the Denver train, but that dirty little coward that shot Mr. Howard, he laid poor Jesse in his grave. Jesse James had a wife to mourn for his life. Children, they were brave, but that dirty little coward that shot Mr. Howard has laid Jesse in his grave. Well, little Robert Ford, that dirty little coward, I wonder how he does feel. For he ate of Jesse's bread and he slept in Jesse's bed. Then he laid Jesse James in his grave. Jesse had a wife to mourn for his life. Children, they were brave, but that dirty little coward that shot Mr. Howard had laid poor Jesse in his grave. Now it was his brother Frank, and they robbed the Galvin Bank, carried the money from the town. It was at the very place that they had a little chase, for they shot Captain Sheets to the ground. They went to the crossing on a summer's night. They robbed the through express. With the agent on his knees, he delivered up his keys to the outlaws, Frank and Jess. Jesse had a wife to mourn for his life. Children, they were brave, but that dirty little coward that shot Mr. Howard laid Jesse in his grave. It was on a Wednesday night, moon shining bright. They robbed the Glendale Bank. The people they did say for many miles away was robbed by Frank and Jesse James. Jesse had a wife, mourned for his life. His children, they were brave, but the dirty little coward that shot Mr. Howard, he laid Jesse in his grave. It was a pleasant summer morn. Jesse was at home, talking with his family brave. Robert Ford came along like a thief in the night, and he laid Jesse James in his grave. Jesse had a wife, mourned for his life. Children, they were brave, but that dirty little coward that shot Mr. Howard, he laid Jesse in his grave. Jesse was standing on a chair, just nailing a picture there. Robert Ford come behind him with a pistol in his hand, and to the floor Jesse James did land. Oh, Jesse had a wife, mourned for his life. Children, they were brave, but that dirty little coward that shot Mr. Howard had laid Jesse James in his grave. Now this song was made by Billy Shade, and as soon as the news did arrive, and I'll bet there is no man with the law in hand who could take Jesse James when alive. Oh, Jesse had a wife to mourn for his life, and children, they were brave, but that dirty little coward that shot Mr. Howard, he laid Jesse in his grave. I need a bed for the night, boys, and my horses need hay. I've been riding that road this highway. Welcome, friends and neighbors, to Willow Creek Folk School number, believe it or not, 135, which opened up with a song that I'm sure I was singing before audiences in 1972, Dr. K. Yeah, with a ragtag folk group that was not Rocky Mountain High.
Okay.
No, it was in low down country. Yeah, the Ballad of Jesse James, though. My word, I remember we would sing this. You've heard me talk about studying balladry with Bill Berenson at Bethany College of Lindsborg, Kansas.
Yes.
Oh, my. And that included the Ballad of Jesse James. Let's say a little bit about Jesse James in the place of that ballad, and Jesse James, great historian, who is William A. Settle, Jr. He's the author of Jesse James Was His Name, or Fact and Fiction Concerning the Careers of the Notorious James Brothers of Missouri. Published by University of Missouri Press in 1966, some years before that. It was a doctoral dissertation for Dr. Settle, who spent the major portion of his academic career as a professor of history at the University of Tulsa. And it was there that he published his master work on Jesse James, and it made him a celebrity historian. You know, he would be called, you know, on the anniversary of the shooting of Jesse James, which we are, do we celebrate that? You know, which we are observing tonight, the anniversary of the shooting of Jesse James by Robert Ford, 1882. And that would result in ritual interviews every year. And he became kind of a general authority then on that kind, on outlawry and violence in the American West. I remember then in another Bethany College experience with Jerry Shannon, and he taught The Gunfighter, Man and Myth. And I know that I read Joseph Rosa, The Gunfighter, Man, The Man and the Myth, and Bill Settle's, they call Jesse James Was His Name in connection with that. And that had to have been about 1972, 73. Oh, my word. Yeah. So, Jesse James, I wonder what Professor Settle has to say about the ballads about Jesse James, Dr. Kelley.
Jesse James is indeed the American bandit. No better evidence of this is needed than the importance of ballads about Jesse James in American folk songs. The list of regional and general collections in which they appear is long. Their authorship, like that of many ballads, is unknown. The ballad that seems to be the original from which most of the other versions have sprung is characterized by the refrain, "That dirty little coward that shot Mr. Howard has laid poor Jesse in his grave." No printed copies that can be dated before 1900 have been found, but evidently the ballad appeared soon after Jesse's death. Vance Randolph, famed folklore authority, found 6 versions of the Jesse James ballad in the Arkansas and Missouri Ozarks, and one of these was sung to 2 tunes. The widespread popularity of the ballads about Jesse James in American folk music has played a dual role in the James legend. It is both a result of and a factor in creating the figure of Jesse James as a modern Robin Hood.
Here we are. Thank you, Professor Settle. When we were singing this song in the 70s, in the kind of the golden age of the folk song revival in American popular culture, hootenanny and all that stuff, we had no idea where it came from. And that was a part of the mystique. Oh, it's a folk song. Nobody knows where it came from. Just sing it. I don't mean to spoil all that, but I've got a fair idea where it came from. All the versions that were known in that time came from songcatchers like Joan Lomax, Professor Belk from Missouri, and others had set down, and Vance Randolph, who Professor Settle mentions there a few years later. The Songcatchers picked it out of the air. As you know, I reconstructing these folk song histories, though, using digitized newspapers. And I'm happy to present the earliest known text of the Ballad of Jesse James right here from the Daily Nebraska Press of Nebraska City, Nebraska, 15th of September, 1886. That was the text I was trying to sing, but you notice I kept screwing it up. You did, yeah, that I was fumbling on it because I keep clicking back on, a half century of different renditions of the thing before this was discovered several months ago here in the Casa on Willow Creek here. I'm engaged now in claiming the Ballad of Jesse James, which I always regarded, it's kind of one of those Missouri border things. No, claiming it as a ballad of the American prairies. This song, the first appearance of the ballad known, is in Nebraska City, Nebraska, in a prairie state, September of 1886. Jesse James has had haunts and acquaintances in southeastern Dakota Territory and along the west bank of the Missouri River in the state of Nebraska. And in fact, he appears to have been engaged in attempting to acquire a farm in Nebraska to sort of find a refuge out there west of the Missouri at the time, during the period when he was shot by Robert Ford. People in Nebraska followed his exploits, partly because Nebraskans believed that Jesse James was a party to the greatest train robbery in American history at Big Springs, Nebraska, on the UP main line in 1877. He was not. They were mistaken about that, but they believed it. And they told that story and explained it had to have been the James boys who masterminded that because it was so expertly done and no other ragtag outlaws or criminals could have pulled it off that way. Well, I'm not sure it was all that expertly done in the first place, but beyond that, the James boys don't appear to have been anywhere near there. But the people in Nebraska believed they were, and they sort of adopted them as folk heroes there in Nebraska. Again, so I'm claiming this as a Great Plains folk song, the Ballad of Jesse James, and it certainly circulates out on the prairies. Here I've got other versions here from Kansas, from Nebraska, and from other prairie states. Yeah, I got Cambridge, Kansas in 1890. I've got Missoula, Montana in the early 20th century. It's rattling around in the oral tradition for a long, long time until, well, I guess I ruined that now. It's now documented historically. Here we are. I don't think you'd ruin it that way. So that's our opener tonight, the Ballad of Jesse James, and we're operating under the heading. What heading do we put on this thing? A blizzard of ballads. So we'll get around to blizzards again in a little while. A blizzard of ballads presented in the aftermath of the April blizzard of 2023 on the Northern Plains. That's our program tonight, starting with the Ballad of Jesse James. I don't know, do you have any announcements or news from
NDSU Press?
Oh, yes. From NDSU Press, yes, maybe. What do you
have? I've got 3 announcements, and I'm going to start with kind of the lesser of significance and work up to a pretty great one. Next week at the World Social Science Association conference, one of our books, Rethinking Rural, Reflections on Today, Insights for the Future, that's going to be a featured discussion book at a panel.
You've mentioned this here before. In
rural agriculture. Yeah, I've talked about this book before. And then the next announcement has to do with a big prize for a little book. Our first little book about North Dakota. It's a collection of poetry called Field Notes with illustrations by Mike Jacobs. Is either going to win gold or silver, we don't know which, in a national award called the Independent Book Publishers Association Benjamin Franklin Award for Poetry. So we're very excited about that. It's our first first book that we put out in that series, and for it to win this national prize is way cool.
For those of you who aren't literary wonks, this is a pretty big deal, right?
It is a big deal. And I want to say, too, is it 2 years ago? Denise Lajemodier's collection of poetry, His Feathers Were Chains, won gold in that category.
Well, and we haven't heard a thing from her ever since, have we?
Nice segue to the last announcement, which you can find on Associated Press if you're reading national news.
About 2 hours ago, it hit the AP.
Yeah. Denise has just been, not nominated, what would you call it?
She has been named.
She's been named.
Anointed.
Yeah, as North Dakota's Poet Laureate. Very exciting for her to have this position. Also, she is the very first Native American Poet Laureate for North Dakota. So we are just bursting at the seams with pride and joy for her.
National press. And it's a great thing for North Dakota. You know, not all of our news has been all that great here lately. By God. And
I know.
Let's claim this one and make a big deal out of it.
Yes, it is a big deal.
Thank you, Denise, for doing this for us.
Yes. It will become official in July.
You don't happen to have one of her books I can hold up here?
I have her scholarly work. I just happen to have it on.
You don't have her works of poetry.
I don't have her poetry with me, though.
That's because we've been reading so hard they've worn them out. Yeah, her book. This, of course, is what made her an international personality. Stringing Rosaries, published by NDSU Press. Indian boarding school narratives.
Yes.
She's on everything from what? Nightline to Al Jazeera.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's some news. Yeah, I can trump everything you got here, though.
Oh, can you?
I can. I'm happy to announce the entry into this corporal world of Carter Paul Clausen, son of Brittany and Jacob Clausen, and brother to big brother Jack, who's only, like this big of a big brother. His little big brother Jack. In addition to the Clausen family, Jacob is a faculty member at Valley City State and also a PhD student of mine in history, who recently won the regional graduate paper prize in the Honor Society in History.
We hang out with some pretty impressive people.
Yeah, well, I don't know why they put up with us. He's a strapping lad, 8 pounds and such. I have not read that he has signed a Bison letter of intent yet, but I'm sure that's coming. Probably they're having a hard time working out the name and image likeness deal because he's so darn good looking also. Oh. Yeah. Probably got unreasonable demands for use of his image. I've got our next ballad on the program here. I don't know if I ever told you about a high school friend of mine who had aspirations for the priesthood. And yes, not everybody in Ellenwood, Kansas was Lutheran. Had aspirations for the priesthood, but he was so troubled about this. And his concern was we'd be riding around, have a good time dragging Maine or something like that, and he'd say, "Oh, am I really worthy to hold the blessed host in my hands?" That's the kind of guy he was. He eventually did go on into the priesthood, so I suppose he was, and we talked to him about the priesthood of all believers and all that sort of thing, and didn't help a bit, but he seemed to sort things out eventually. Some of these ballads, that is the way I feel about them. I was just thinking that this morning when I was working with some of this stuff. My word, this stuff that's laying out there, buried. It's like opening one of the pyramids, and inside is all this stuff that nobody existed was out there. And it is such a privilege to resurrect the stuff and to be with people and talk, tolerant people who let me natter on about this. Now, I've got a story I'm going to read you the set piece. I've written about this story several times. About a German-Russian woman, a German from Russia, in McIntosh County, North Dakota. And the ballad, when we do this here, let's dedicate it to our good friend Michael Miller, who's gone through a rough patch lately with some recent surgery that I understand has gone well. And you know, Michael, we've got to have a beer here shortly, you know. Dear man, he is Mr. German from Russia in North Dakota and on the northern plains, Michael Miller. He knows his story. And he knows the song now. He's heard it. Sing it enough times. And I'll give you the story of it, and then we'll wind up with a ballad. Wilhelmina Geiszler, who I always refer to as the Martyr Mother of the Germans from Russia, because she died trying to save her daughters from a prairie fire in 1898. The fire that came whipping on a northwest wind across Dry Lake there northwest of Ashley, North Dakota, when it was a dry lake bed. Now it's prime walleye fishing ground. You know, there's 15, 20 feet of water where that fire ripped across in 1898. Okay, here's the story, and I'll sequence right into the ballad at that point. The story of Wilhelmina Geiszler is a legend long told by the people of North Dakota. And I've been one of the tellers, particularly in my radio space known as Plains Folk on Prairie Public Radio. I have called her the Martyr Mother of the German Russians. Her legendary profile belies the modest marker on her gravesite in the Ashley Cemetery. It has become my business to recount such legends, for during past years, and one particular calendar year, I was designated historian in residence for German-Russian country, defined by the Tri-County Tourism Alliance as Emmons, Logan, and McIntosh County. As I prowled the landscape there, my gas tank was filled by virtue of a grant from Humanities North Dakota. Now briefly again then, as I had known it, and as I rediscovered it and filled it in McIntosh County, here is the tragic story of Wilhelmina Geiszler. One afternoon in April 1898, husband Johannes was in the field plowing, and two daughters of the house were fetching the cows from a pasture when the wind changed. A prairie fire thus turned to threaten the farmstead where Wilhelmina was at home. The two daughters raced for the house, each grabbing the tail of a cow to speed their progress. One of the two made it home safe. The other child, Anna, stepped in a gopher hole, fell, and was swept by the fire. Horrified, Wilhelmina ran to assist her stricken daughter right through the flames. Mother and daughter both died of their burns. One of the points I emphasize to the people of German-Russian country in talks such as one that I presented, I remember, on a wonderful day in Lehigh when the audience exceeded by 10 people the population of the town, is the necessity of investing the landscape with story. It is a narrative that gives meaning to life in a place. It is narrative that appeals to visitors, the independent travelers who wish to experience real things in real places. So, to make this point to the people of Lehigh that day, and I have many times, I told them one more time their own story, the story of Minnie Geiszler. For the first time on that day in Lehigh, in the form of a ballad that I had written for the occasion. One more thing you need to know to understand the ballad I'm about to sing. A glazed clay bust of Minnie Geiszler, crafted by Laura Taylor Hughes, the founder of Rosemead Pottery, reposes in an exhibit case in the McIntosh County Heritage Center of Ashley. To Wilhelmina Geiszler. Christian people, reach thine hand. Martyr Mother of the German, Russian people of new land. Thinking only of another, she sacrificed her life that day. As she was immortal mother, lives still in memory in clay. A prairie farm, McIntosh County, in April 1898, Wilhelmina and her Anna died in a prairie fire that day, while Johannes labored plowing. Poor Anna fell to ground and lay. Courage and love, her deed endowing, brave Minnie ran through fire that day. We sing the song of Wilhelmina. We view her visage cast in clay. There is a miracle that happens for believers, so they say. By her faithfulness engendered, here for the people of the land. Brave Minnie's cheek in cold clay rendered, curiously warms the touch of the hand. Best wishes for a swift recover, Michael Miller. We have any guests on the chat line tonight, Dr. K?
We do. We have someone who has done a great deal of research about the Germans from Russia.
Who are we talking about?
Dr. Jess Clark is in here, and she's...
And something to note in regard to Dr. Clark tonight.
Oh? Is today her birthday?
I think it is. Ask her.
Today?
Jess, is
April 7th. I think that's right.
Yeah.
Well, happy birthday. Well, she has fond memories of Lair Tabernacle and stories that you're telling here tonight.
Oh, she knows that turf very well.
All right, and someone else has popped in that you haven't heard from in a long time, I suspect. Our friend from Louisiana, James Robichaud.
James Robichaud.
How about that?
James. Imagine, James is still alive.
Came in for the night from chasing trains, but yeah, he's here.
What a fine man. What a fine man. I was looking into the background of a hobo song. You know I love the hobo songs, right? Yeah. even though I'm not in any way affiliated with South Dakota State University. An inside joke, if you don't know anything about SDSU, you don't know. I'm talking about hobos, but no, I'm not a SDSU hobo. But they're this persistent theme in Great Plains balladry. And let's see what I've got here. Oh yeah, I got another little set piece. I went down today, just today. We were finally dug out here at the place on Willow Creek and get to town again. We actually got in yesterday afternoon, the first time again, after the recent unpleasantry. And I recorded this, so I'm just going to give it to you. Here's the story of a hobo ballad of the plains that we haven't talked about here before. On a pleasant morning in early June 1913, the editor of the Hoisington Dispatch, that's Hoisington, Kansas, about 15 miles from where I grew up in western Kansas, was taking his morning constitutional, walking around town with his eyes and ears open for stories, and one rocked right up to him. It was a gawky individual, a backwoods genius, the newsman called him. He was standing on the corner of Main and Broadway on the east side of the street, I know exactly where that is, with his hands stuck into his pockets up to his elbows. The stranger seemed a bit of a rube, remarking on the big buildings in the county seat town and confessing he was from the country. The editor recounted the stranger's side of their dialogue in a European immigrant pidgin language. He then recited some poetry to us, he writes, in good English, and the newsman wrote it down. It starts, "Let me sit down a minute. There's a stone got into my shoe. You needn't commence your cussin', I ain't said nothing to you." When I read those lines, I recognized them as the first stanza of a venerable old American folk song with several names, commonly Down in the Lehigh Valley or The Hobo's Story. The song's origin remain obscure, but I know it was circulating in the eastern states, especially Pennsylvania, by the 1870s. By further research, I have established that Down in the Lehigh Valley is one of a complex of hobo folk songs known and sung across the prairies. I first pick it up in this part of the country, courtesy of the Ingalls, Kansas Union, the 5th of October, 1893, 7 stanzas published under the title, The Tramp. The Tramp is the narrating persona of the song, and he tells the story, which, as you might expect, is a sad one. It is the story of how the man's daughter was lured away by a traveling man, a city stranger. The storytelling hobo used to be a respected blacksmith down in the Lehigh Valley, he says, but now dispirited, embittered, he roams the land, seeking vengeance against the man who seduced his daughter. "I'll catch that scoundrel," he says, "if it takes me till Judgment Day." The song appears 1893 also in the Coffeeville Weekly Journal and in other papers in Kansas and surrounding states, and then up and down the prairies. Its appearance corresponds with the coming of the economic depression of the 1890s that set many unemployed men to riding the rails. The old songs about hobos are always full of pathos. They never describe tramps as bad men. They are unfortunate. They have personal weaknesses, but to a man, they tell sad stories. Down in the Lehigh Valley, circulated both as a recitation and as a ballad with a simple melody. As for our newfound friend in Hoisington, 1915, the editor writes, "A few tears twinkled down the old man's cheeks, and our genius character walked away. I halted him, but no, he only waved goodbye." Let me sit down a minute. There's a stone got into my shoe. You needn't commence your cussin', 'cause I haven't said anything to you. Down in the Lehigh Valley, that's where my people grew. I was a blacksmith captain, and you was a good one too. My wife, Nellie, and I, then Nellie was just 16. She was the fairest creature that village had ever seen. She had beaux, both far and near, but none of them suited her, as they were all farmer boys and they all acted so queer. Well, along came a city dude, young, handsome, and tall. Damn him, I wish I'd strangled him up against the wall. Finally she met him one day, and he coaxed and coaxed and coaxed, until young Nellie had promised him to leave home and run away. Well, just give me one more drink, Cap, and I'll be on my way. But I'll catch that scoundrel if it takes me to Judgment Day. Down in the Lehigh Valley, sometimes called the Tramp's Story, one of a great body of hobo folk song on the Great Plains of North America. That song in particular was picked up by songcatcher George Milburn in Oklahoma in mid-20th century. But now, as usual, I've got a bunch of older texts than that, including the one you just heard from Hoisington in 1915. Anything to say, Dr. K? You any cussing to do?
No cussing.
Thought you might. I have a little bit of an announcement here. We're on tonight. This is number 135. Willow Creek Folk School number 136 will be coming live from the World Social Science Association in Tempe, Arizona at our usual time, I believe. We better check the schedule on that.
I guess so.
Yeah. Make sure that they have it right at their end. It's complicated. They're on Mountain Standard Time, I believe, in Tempe.
Okay.
So we're going to have to study it out ourselves.
Check that out.
Make sure we're straight. And so we're on for Willow Creek Folk School number 136 next week. And then, as I reckon, Dr. K will take 2 weeks off, because I'm off to Whitewater, Wisconsin, to rep the National Office of the History Honor Society at a meeting there.
Phi Alpha Theta.
Phi Alpha Theta. And the week after that, you and I are at the Dakota Conference in Sioux Falls, and it's just too dodgy to get back and get set up to get a folk school going in here. We theoretically could make it, I believe, but I think it's best to save the stress and not try to make that. Which means it's the first. We'll be back here in the salon in the first
week of
Friday,
May.
first Friday in May.
Yeah, so we're here next Friday.
Right, we're not here, but we'll be
for 2 weeks.
we'll be here in this place online. You bet.
Oh yeah.
But originating from another place. You've heard me sing that popular song from the 1890s, "After the Ball is Over," which spread all over the country because of the Columbian Exposition in 1893, and it was very popular. It was just played everywhere, and people brought it home, and that made it a folk song. Everybody picked it up, and they were transmitting it and proliferating all over the map of the United States in the mid-1890s. And then it became the tune for various other songs that were set to its tune, like After the Strip is Opened, sang, I believe, 3 weeks ago here, a ballad of the Cherokee Strip of 1893, you see, which would have been composed about 6 months after the song broke out at the Columbian Exposition. After the ball, after the Strip is open. That same year, there was a heck of a December blizzard across the northern plains. Somebody wanted to sing about it. We don't know who. But his parody of After the Ball shows up in newspapers across this part of the country. Only it was After the Blizzard's Over. I'll lay it on you here. Hang on. Let's see, what key? This one. After the blizzard's over, after the break of dawn, after the snow has drifted, after the snow has gone, many's the nose that's frosted. Lord, how I wish 'twas warm. Shrunken and thin is the coal pile after the storm. Well, we've had a disappointing early week here. It's shaping up now. We've got sunshine the past couple days. The roof's leaking because of evidently an ice dam up there. So it just never ends. And of course, the waters will start rising here as this massive amount of snow on the landscape melts and tries to find its way to Winnipeg. Why don't you suck hard up there at Winnipeg? Just pull it up and get it out of here. Yeah. But we're not dispirited, are we?
We're not. And we just a quick note, Lisa Ocean checked on the time for the song next Friday. It will be at 8 o'clock Central Time.
Central Daylight Time. Yeah. Okay. Well, at any rate, even though we've got this trauma we're dealing with, being hammered again with the biggest snowstorm of the winter in April. And so we're going to do that. And since the folks in Dakota in 1893 gave us the model of the tune to appropriate, we're just going to do that. Come 1st of April, winter should be done. Apricot blossoms, scent of native plum. Teams on the ball field, boats on the lake. No such occurrences this spring is a fake. I'm tired of snowshoes to go get the mail. What if my last snowblower shear pin should fail? I don't want to buy another tank of propane. I want mulberries, amber waves of grain. Let's just say no to snow days. Arrivederci, ciao. National Weather Service should be defunded now. After the storm is over, brats will be on the grill. Will there be snow on the 4th of July? I think there will. Where the deer and the antelope play. Come 1st of April, winter should be done. Apricot blossoms, scent of native plum. Teams on the ball field, boats on the lake. No such occurrences this spring is a fake. your pin should fail. I don't want to buy another tank of propane. I want mulberries and amber waves of grain. Where seldom is a word, not a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy. Are not cloudy all the day. No, the skies are not cloudy all day. Dr. K.
We now conclude today's edition of the Folk School on Willow Creek. We invite you to join us again next Friday at 8 p.m. Central Time for more songs and stories.